Hi everyone, this is Mary, you're in Mary Reads. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I wanted to talk about Yellowface. I think it came out like 2 years ago, but I only got to it now. I was looking for a copy for a very long time, and I finally bought it in Canada. This video was supposed to be a vlog, but then I had so much to say and there were so many things to discuss that I decided to make a separate video and talk a little bit about this book. So let's begin by talking a little bit about the contents of the book. So in case you haven't heard of the book or you're not sure what it's about, you kind of get a quick overview. So this is the story about two friends, June and Athena. They both went to Yale together. They are both writers, but Athena is a very popular, very famous Chinese American writer. Her novels sell very well. She wrote like 2 or 3 books already and people love her. And June's work was not as appreciated. So her first novel, I think it was called Under the Sycamore, only sold like 2,000 or 3,000 copies, and she is working as a tutor. She's not making money with her writing, and she's of course a little bit jealous of Athena's success. So it is friendship, but it's kind of icky a little bit. And June is a white girl. So the story starts with Athena and June having drinks together and going to Athena's place, where she tells June that she just finished a new novel that talks about the Chinese laborers during World War I. And Athena's process of writing a novel is that she doesn't tell anyone about her ideas, about what she's writing about, until she finishes her draft. So she just finished the draft that morning and nobody has heard of this novel yet. And so she tells June about her last work. And then in a crazy, very weird accident, Athena dies. She chokes on a pancake. And June decides to take her novel and print it kind of as a legacy to her friend. And this is how the story begins. And we are going to read about what happened after that, what happened with June, how far she was willing to go to publish this story. And yeah, basically this is it. So what happens next? June starts working on Athena's draft, and her first idea is that I just want people to see this work. Athena was working on it, but she wasn't able to finish it, so I'm gonna finish it for her and publish it because it's a great novel and I want it to, come alive and become a book. But then we see this transition. In June, she starts thinking that it's her novel. The more she works on it, the more she begins to think that without her, this novel wouldn't happen at all, that a lot of things that Athena wrote were not put very well, or the paragraph didn't flow correctly, so she changed it a lot, and a lot of it was June's work. So she really starts seeing this novel as her own. And it's a very interesting transition. It's very interesting to see how her perception changes. She starts working with a publishing house who offer her to change her name as Juniper Song. Song is her middle name, and they said that this is going to be more authentic, so she changes her name and publishes the novel with that name. But then something starts coming up. People start thinking that it wasn't her who wrote this novel. They start thinking that it was Athena, and maybe Athena didn't just die by accident. Maybe it was June's work. So this is kind of this huge theme of social media and what it can do to a popular person. And so the first thing I wanted to talk about is this destructive power of social media that Kwong shows us. And this is actually a very scary topic that I think needs to be discussed, maybe even more than it is discussed now. So a big part of this book is June trying to get through all of this social media hate. And it's not just critics of the book who wrote an article online. It's not just book bloggers who found something or didn't approve of something that she wrote. It's just a mass of people who keep commenting, who were writing to her on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, everywhere. And it was just this destructive power that she couldn't get through. There was nothing she can do. She just kept getting hate and curses and death threats. And the worst part of that is that there really was nothing she could do. The only thing is to turn off your phone and go to bed, but then you wake up to 40, 50 more notifications, all of them saying you are horrible, you need to stop writing forever, I'm gonna come find you and kill you or whatever. And it was just so scary to read that. It was so mean, so filled with hate. And I feel like a lot of times this is what happens in real life. We dissociate ourselves. When it's coming through the phone, when it's just leaving a comment to someone who you don't even see, who doesn't feel like a real person to you, you don't feel scared of writing these things. And you feel like you're allowed, you're just expressing your opinion, it's completely fine to do that. But the person who receives it actually doesn't see it as just something that doesn't matter. For him, it's something that can change his life. It's something that can completely break his health, break his psychological stability. This is just a horrible, horrible thing that happens with social media. There are good things that social media brings, but then there is something like this. And I feel like some of it Kwong might have taken from her own experience with the previous works that she published, because what she writes really feels very personal. It feels like she experienced something like that, at least to some degree, and she knows what it is to experience such hate. And I would just say that I think nobody deserves something like that. And I think this is what she's trying to say also. Nobody deserves hate like that. Even though, of course, we understand that June did a wrong thing by taking someone else's novel, plagiarizing, and giving it as her own. I feel like she's trying to show us how dirty it can get and how bad it is. Even if you think it's justified, I feel like Kwong is trying to show us that nobody deserves hate like this. The next aspect of this book that I wanted to discuss is the publishing business and how publishing works, what authors need to go through when publishing the book. I think Kwong did a great job telling us how it all works, what the technical details are, how we go through the first draft to the final draft, to finding the cover, the right cover for the book, to going through marketing, through the positioning of the author, how they want to position themselves. She also shows how tough of a business publishing is, in the sense that you need to give a lot of yourself to the publishing as somebody who works there, as an editorial assistant, as an editor, as whoever in publishing, how much you need to give, but how little it gives you back. For example, we read about kind of the main antagonist of the story. So she is the most, let me say, the obvious bad person here. Obviously, we are critiquing June for what she did, but this person is kind of also an antagonist, at least for June. So it's Candice. She's an editorial assistant or a publicity assistant. So she works in the publishing house, and she starts working on June's book. So she's put in her project. And they don't really hit it off. They don't like each other. And Candice at some point writes a very bad review about June's book. And for that, she gets fired for being unprofessional. And so since then, starting from that point, she can't find any other job in publishing. And whatever she can find just doesn't pay the bills. So I think it's also interesting to see that publishing, how tough of a business publishing actually is, how tough it is to work in publishing, and how you're basically a nobody until you become an editor or whatever, how hard it is to, build your path and become somebody. I think it's a very interesting point, especially because I was looking at jobs in publishing, and I know a lot of people who want to work in publishing, And this is what we all experienced in real life when listening to their stories, when comparing to my own stories and experiences with that, how hard it is to find something in publishing, how tough it is to, claw your way up to the top or up to becoming somebody important in publishing. And this was a very interesting aspect of a book. I really enjoyed reading about all of these details. I think it's going to be interesting for you if you are in general interested in books, in literature, in how it all works. It might not be as interesting to you if you are an editor, or if you work in publishing, or if you're an author. This might not be something that fascinates you, but for me it was fascinating. I loved hearing about all of this process. I loved hearing about all of those different aspects that the author needs to go through to publish a book. So this was very nice. Kwang also says that publishing is a business that can very often be unfair. So, for example, we are choosing authors of one race over the authors of another race. I don't know how real it is in our real publishing world. I have a feeling that Kwang wrote it based on her experience. So maybe this is how it actually is. I didn't notice it. Just because I didn't really look into it. But this is also a very interesting topic that she discusses, and if this is something that interests you, I think you're going to find the book great. So apart from the story itself, you can also dive deeper into technical details of publishing world and how fair or unfair it is. Now let's move to my personal opinion of the book. I started reading a lot of reviews after I finished the book, and one of them phrased my thought very well. So I think June was not unlikable enough. Kwang wants us to not like June because she's a thief. She stole from another author. She published this work as her own. She tried being somebody who she actually is not. But for me, this did not make June unlikable enough. For me, it felt more like she was a person who was lost, who didn't know what to do with her life, who just didn't know what's going on, and who made a mistake and is now paying for the consequences of that mistake. And what I felt was not annoyance, at least not for the first half of the book. I was annoyed with her, but later. But what I felt for the first part of the book was pity, sympathy, was some sort of sadness, just because this is a person who really doesn't know where her life is going and what course she should take, And I can't say that I didn't like her, that I hated her, that I saw her as an evil person. And I think this is what Kwang was going for. But I just didn't get that. I was definitely annoyed with her in the end. I definitely didn't like her by the end, because some of the things that she did were actually stupid. And of course, I understand that plagiarizing is horrible, especially when your friend died and you stole her book and published it as your own. Obviously, this is bad. But this felt to me more like a mistake, like a mistake of a person who doesn't know what to do with his life, than some sort of an evil act. So I don't know how well Kwang was able to portray June here. I don't know if she wanted us to feel these different things about her, or she just didn't write her well enough. But by the end of the book, I got annoyed, not just with June, but with every character in this book. I got annoyed with Athena, who dies in the beginning, but we read more about her and more about her personality, and she made me sick. The publishing house that June was working with made me sick, how they kept pushing her to being someone she is actually not, to just make the sales bigger, to be more authentic, to kind of make this project sell better. I was sick with Candice, who was this editorial assistant or publicity assistant, who was just a jerk of a person. I was sick to my stomach with June, who kept doing stupid things, who was just completely, who was not ready to acknowledge her mistake and move on. So by the end of the book, I actually wanted to take a shower and wash all of this story off of me. But here, I think this is what Kwang was actually going for. In her Substack article, she says, "You're supposed to feel sick to your stomach and sick of everyone involved and unsure of what to believe, except that you still can't look away." And this I definitely felt, though I feel like Kwang's phrase that we should be unsure what to believe in was something that actually made me so confused with the main idea of the book. This is what makes the message of this book so vague for me. So am I supposed to hate June for what she did? Or am I supposed to hate the publishing house for them being so unfair to other authors, them being so eager to get more money from the project that they want to, that they're ready to make you a completely new person and push the author to do that? Am I supposed to hate Athena for being a mean person and just stealing stories from people who she talked to, just taking their ideas, taking their experiences and putting them in her novel this boldly? Or am I supposed to hate Candice, who did just a horrible thing, no matter what June did, who did a horrible thing and bullied her online so bad that June got into depression, into horrible panic attack and anxiety episodes, who went almost mad? So who is the bad person here? Or are all of them bad, but just in different ways? So this was a very interesting part, because you are left with all of those thoughts about who is actually a bad person here. It's not that obvious. But at the same time, this is something that made me a little bit confused with what the author wanted to say. I think in the end of the day, it's the flaws of every character in this book. It's not just June, it's everyone involved. And I think that's something that Kwang really wanted to show and let us know about, make us experience. The climax of the story looked a little bit silly to me. I think it wasn't believable at all. And I don't want to spoil anything here, but I definitely think that it could have been better. But I guess that's not what Kwang was going for. I feel like she just wanted to move to the last chapter, and this was a way to do it. And it didn't really matter how she did it, because the whole book is a little bit, crazy and, well, choking on a pancake. Are you serious? How often does that happen? So I feel like maybe it didn't really matter what happened in the climax of the story, as long as it brought us to the last chapter. And in the last chapter, I also didn't like the ending, because I thought that finally Kwang will give June redemption, that finally June will get over this whole situation, put it behind her, and start her life over, write something of her own, or maybe start a different career. But no, Kwang just puts her in a different war. It's like part 2 of the war begins. I feel like this was just so sickening. We just got through all of that dirt that followed her stealing the novel, and now June is willing to put herself through all of this again. And that was just something that made me even more sick. So I definitely think that this book gave me a lot of emotions. I definitely think that this book is something that's worth reading, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to take it again, just because it made me so tense, so sick, so like itchy, I wanted to disassociate myself from this story. Yeah, so if I do take this book again, it will be in a very, very long time. I can definitely recommend it, but you need to be prepared that really it will be sickening, like actually sickening. And for me, this book was, I would say, 7 out of 10. But it's a very strong 7. I don't want to give it more just because, again, I didn't believe in the climax. I didn't like the ending, and I wasn't sure where we're going with the story. What am I supposed to get from it? Who am I supposed to think bad or wrong or whatever? So yeah, this is what I'm taking 3 points for. I definitely think the book is worth reading, and it reads very fast. So if you want to discuss the topic of race and nationality more, if you want to know more about publishing and the book world, this book is definitely for you. It definitely wasn't bad, but it's definitely not going to be the best book of the year. So let me know if you read this book. What did you think about it? Do you agree with my opinion on the book? What main idea did you get from the book? What do you think the message was? Leave a comment below, like this video if you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you soon. Bye bye.